Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. It is a big day as everybody's excited. We are here a day later than we wanted to be talking quarterbacks. It is numbers 15 through 11 on our rankings of K-State quarterbacks over the last 20 seasons. To be on this list, you had to attempt to pass and have a clearly defined role as a quarterback. So for most of these guys, it's your position was listed as a quarterback. We've already been over Daniel Thomas and Angelo Pease. Those were guys that had carved out roles specifically as Wildcat quarterbacks. They stick out in the memory as, yeah, they had packages for that, guys. It was intentional. It was not just some cutesy thing. They wanted to do it. We've already gone past those guys. So as a refresher for everybody, these are 25 through 21 on the list. Zach Davidson, Nick Ost, Jaron Lewis, Angelo Pease, and John Holcomb make up the first five or the bottom five on this list. Then numbers 20 through 16, Jake Rubley, Samuel Lemur, Joe Huebner, Jacob Knuth, and Daniel Thomas. And today we get ready to go 15 through 11. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody that we are officially under 3 months until kickoff of K-State Iowa State in the 2025 Aer Lingus College Football Classic. You can visit cats2ireland.com for travel and hospitality packages. And also those come with your tickets. So you're going to get hooked up there. If you want the individual tickets, you got everything else covered. KStateSports.com for info on the limited amount that remain. They're going to start going quickly. We're getting closer to kickoff, so definitely take care of it today as we hit the home stretch until everybody is flying from wherever it be that you start, Wichita, Kansas City, any of the great spots around the country that K-State alums are based now, and then make your way over to Dublin for the game. We got no time for fun facts today, Drew. We got to get straight into business.
It's strictly business. That's how you know we're not messing around today.
Yeah. This is no fun in these games here. So here we go. Let's start off the list. We went over the recap. Here's another guy, the final guy that was not explicitly listed as a quarterback, at least at the start of the season. It's time to talk about one Kody Cook. 2013 to 2015, he was on the roster. He redshirted in 2013. He came from Hutchinson Community College, roll drags. I took a couple classes there online or through high school. So, kind of an alum of Hutchinson Community College. Really only do that when I want to, in a tongue-in-cheek way, say that. I could care less about HCC. Happy for the people that get success there for the Blue Dragons, though. Kody Cook. 30 of 66 in his career, 447 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. The game that stands out to everybody was how he played against Oklahoma State in 2015 in relief of Joe Huebner, somebody who was already on this list. You're probably thinking, okay, if he was coming in relief of Huebner, why is he higher? Well, I think it was clear to basically everybody that Kody Cook maybe was the best option at quarterback, and that became apparent to the coaches by the end of the year when Kody Cook saved everybody's bacon against West Virginia. He really only threw one pass that saved their bacon. Morgan Burns did the rest. But then he got to start the Liberty Bowl for K-State at quarterback, and now is working his way up through the coaching ranks in college football. But Kody Cook, number 15 on our list.
Yeah, last week I called this kind of like the cult hero section of the list, because it really is. And Kody Cook was a cult hero in 2015. We've talked about this with a few different guys on this list. Did you think that Kody Cook had more passing attempts than he actually did?
I think 66 might shock me that it was that high. I think it's more than I would have thought.
I thought that it was a lot less than I remember. It's also funny because we see these headshots, and one guy specifically on this list on today's list has such a crazy headshot. Kody Cook looks like such a baby in this headshot compared to what he looks like now, because he's got the full beard now and he's got the baby face going. So the thing that I think I remember the most about Kody Cook though is that Oklahoma State game. We talked about that Joe Huebner was 1,000% concussed, and then there was no other options. And when you see a receiver go in, because that's the funny thing about this. You said that it was clear that Kody Cook was the best quarterback option this season. He was also the best wide receiver option. So when you see a receiver go in, you're thinking, holy crap, what is about to happen? And then he goes out and if it wasn't for just pure idiocy from the officiating crew in this game, K-State wins this with a receiver playing quarterback, which just kind of shows that like the Bill Snyder magic even in 2.0 was still absolutely insane. By the way, that's NFL defensive back Deontay Burton
Yeah, former
making that
Dallas Cowboy.
making that reception. But you really got to see it all during 2015. This whole season was just a fever dream. Somebody has talked about like we should do kind of
This is
like
the one pass he made in the West
yeah.
Virginia game. Yes.
People have said that we should do like a breakdown of like the old seasons, and if we did one, the 2015 one would be absolutely electric. Like there were so many ups and a lot of downs, but then some ups again during 2015. Like it's a season that just kind of
I
makes
threw
no
Morgan
sense.
Burns kickoff return in there, by the way, just for
Oh
everybody to experience it again.
no, I love a good Morgan Burns return. So
Yeah.
yeah, that whole season just didn't make a lot of sense. So if we did one, I think that we should probably like start with 2015 because this was like the first season. Like I remember like bits and pieces of 2012, but 2015 is like the one season that I think that I remember most games in.
Probably because it was the most frustrating. You know, it's the whole adage of you remember the losses more than you do the wins. And there
Yeah,
were certainly a lot of losses in 2015. And when you look back, like we're seeing two of them here against good teams. K-State very easily could have beaten Oklahoma State in Stillwater. They could have beaten like TCU at home, like we've talked about. Like it was such a weird season. And uh, it was a great point by you that it was so bleak at quarterback at times that Bill Snyder had to take his best receiver and make him play quarterback. That they figured their best option was weakening their receiver room to maybe incrementally make quarterback a little bit better for K-State. But he came in, he did his job, and it's unfortunate. You know, we talked about it with the Hubner stuff last week, but both of those guys got injured in that Oklahoma State game.
yeah.
And you think if Kody Cook is still in and still available, like maybe the outcome's a little bit different. It might open up some different things. I don't know for
Well,
that final drive when they need to go
it
for two. But
it definitely helps a little bit more because then you don't have concussed Joe Hubner have to go back
yeah, yeah,
in.
that's I'm now looking back at that. I'm not even going to fault Joe Hubner for not getting the job done at the end there. Like that was not a fair situation to put him in. But Kody Cook, he makes the list at number 15, and obviously the case there being he saved the butts of some people in 2015, and also like that Oklahoma State game, even with the loss, sticks out to a lot of people. We'll have another quarterback on this list that had a game against Oklahoma State that resulted in a loss that remains with a lot of people. All right. So next up, time to go to number 14. It is Grant Gregory. One season at K-State, 2009, was 100 of 175 passing, just over 1,000 yards, or just shy of 1,100. 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. He was the first quarterback to be credited with the victory in the 16-game win streak over KU. Also played well in the game against Iowa State. Already had some people, Drew, that were like, oh, Grant Gregory should be higher as we get the Grant Gregory highlights going here. Wonderful to watch. Little Farmageddon heroics here. He's going to hit Brandon Banks in Arrowhead. But I
Bro,
think
that's a great pass followed by a great catch.
Oh, it's everything about it was fantastic. That whole game, there's obviously been a lot against Iowa State. That's a phenomenal game in K-State history. Not just like, yeah, we know that there's the standpoint of, oh, well, that wasn't a great team or all this other stuff. But in the context of what that game was, and it's against the rival, fantastic there as you see Grant Gregory on the sideline. Next to wide receiver Colin Klein coming off the field with 5.5 minutes left to play. But I think some people would be surprised as now you see some of the KU highlights at Grant Gregory didn't play as much as I thought that he did that season, where if you go in and look at it, he appeared in 11 games, but you go through and see what he was tasked with doing in those games. After the Iowa State game, he only had 4 more games where he completed double-digit passes, and he only went above 80 yards passing after the Iowa State game 4 times as well. So it just usage was a little bit more reserved than I remembered it being for Grant Gregory that year. And uh, again, I appreciate him for what he was, for what he did, but this is one of those where I just kind of, when people are going to be like, well, where are you going to put him higher? I don't know that he needs to necessarily be higher. The numbers were pretty pedestrian, and he had a split time with Carson Kaufman. Like, that's the other part of it too. And this team won 6 games and didn't make a bowl game because 2 of the wins were against FCS schools. So if you want to argue Grant Gregory versus somebody else later on this list, like some have, good luck, but I'd rather have the other guy. And that's not me dissing Grant Gregory, because I like him. But I think you're splitting hairs here with guys on this list.
Yeah, Grant Gregory, the OG transfer portal quarterback. Like,
yeah,
you really go back and look at that. So he was fine for what he was. I mean, he didn't have to be like some crazy baller. 2009 season, like, I don't remember a lot of it, but like that was also kind of an up and down season. The thing that I think that he is the most famous for is being that first one to start the streak, because I do remember, like, going into that 2009 Oklahoma game, there was still a lot of anxiety after losing 3 in a row to KU, and it's Bill's first game back against KU, so like, he wanted to make a statement, and then K-State comes out and wins. That Iowa State game, also electric. All I really remember Grant Gregory for is being like this guy that was more of a runner than a thrower, surprise, from this era, and was just tough as shit. Because I remember, I think it was that Iowa State game that he had like a dislocated shoulder or something crazy.
well, that's the other thing too, is like, I remembered him as a runner as well, and they ran him a decent amount in games. He only had 3 games where he ran for more than 40 yards. And
Well,
there's OU, KU, and Tennessee Tech.
you can't do it all in 2009.
Yeah.
Although
Well,
there is some sneaky good talent on that 2009 team if you really go in and do a deep dive.
yeah.
Also, this is the guy that I was talking about with the absurd headshot. Like, his neck is like 2 miles long.
It's everything about that picture is very much on brand for its time period. The jerseys that are basically like what practice jerseys would be now. I bet there are teams that would wear what USF was wearing in 2008 for practice, and be like, these are trash compared to what we normally put on.
Oh, 100%.
That's one of the funny things to see, the growth over 20 years, where what used to be game jerseys are now practice jerseys and everything. But look, I don't want people thinking that I'm an anti Grant Gregory guy. That 2009 season, I think, is important. Bill Snyder comes back. Yeah, they didn't go to a bowl game and all that, but they were 6-6. We talk about it all the time. Hilarious, the position they were in at the end of the year against Nebraska. At the time, as an 11-year-old, it kind of blew my mind, and it's still wild to think about now. But K-State goes and wins that game in Lincoln. They're playing for the Big 12 championship, but they lost the game, and they don't even go to a bowl game at 6-6.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're ever going to see something like that again.
No.
But very much a fun season to look back and remember on. I mean, golly, the North was just so freaking terrible. Back
it was
then.
bad. Like, that 2009, like, Grant Gregory for me makes this list and is higher on this list than I think that I would have done. Like, if you take away the blocked extra point to beat Iowa State, does Gregory make this list like as high as he was? I don't think that he does, because he makes this list higher for me because he came in and started a handful of games, split time with Carson Kaufman.
He was the guy in the 2 biggest wins of that season.
Yeah, but he won the 2 biggest games of the season against the 2 rivals, KU and Iowa State, and I think that kind of propels him up on this list for me, probably even higher than maybe he should be.
Yeah, I think he's in the right spot. I don't know that there's a quarterback that I look at on here that we've had so far that I would say to myself, I'd rather have them than Grant Gregory. I still think there might be a worthy discussion of having of how high do we go on wanting to see Daniel Thomas play quarterback ahead of some of these guys? Like for
Yeah.
me, I had Daniel Thomas 13th in my rankings. That's how high I had him. So I had him one spot ahead of Grant Gregory. That's where the difference in a lot of this came down from. But Grant Gregory, uh, people don't need to go too hard to bat to defend him
No,
right now.
he just was what he was. He was solid. He was never good enough to be the full-time quarterback. But kind of gets that cult hero status because he was the first one to beat KU and beat Iowa State.
And I think you hit the nail on the head by asking the question about, if Emmanuel Lemur doesn't block that PAT against Iowa State, where is the conversation different? Maybe not for us. I think he still probably falls right in the same range for us, but I think that the people going to bat for him right now may be a little different. But hey, guess what? If you disagree or you want to join that conversation, it's happening over at KStateOnline.com. So get signed up, become a member for just $1 your first week. You get access to the most extensive coverage of K-State and college sports because it also comes with your On3 National membership and a lot more getting ready to come your way in just over a month when On3 and Rivals come together. So that's the plug for KSO there. Let's move on. Keep going down the list as we now go to a guy that was here just recently, just left the program as well. Taquan Roberson only played one season at K-State, only attempted 7 passes, and yet Drew Galloway had him at 13th on his list of quarterbacks, and this is going to be the most folk hero of folk hero on this list because he only did it for one game. He only did it for half a series, but Roberson's performance against Colorado and not crashing the car has won the hearts of a lot of people, and he's number 13 on our list. It's a short highlight package, Drew. Explain yourself.
Okay, let's chill out here. You had him at 15. It's not like you had him at
no, it's true.
22.
No, I had him. I just, when people were trying to, they were trying to lump me in with like, oh, why is he ahead of this guy? I did not have him ahead of this guy, but whatever.
He gets higher for me because I think that if for whatever reason Avery Johnson wouldn't have been able to go the rest of the game, he showed enough in this half of a series.
He was good.
That I think that he would have been fine. Like, does he make that last throw to win the Colorado game? Probably not. Does he also throw the interception that Avery threw?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe not.
Drew, he was kind of the starting quarterback at UConn and then kind of got benched there. He definitely throws that interception.
Well, number one, they probably don't go for it on 4th down if Roberson is the one that's in the game.
Fair. That's fair.
So he probably doesn't due to that.
Let's just dive into this a little bit more. I think, credit to Roberson. Again, did not crash the car. Probably a lot more credit to Jace Brown and even more credit to the Colorado DB right here that I don't know what he was doing. He basically, the way he reacts, you would think that Jace Brown pushed off. And that's what I thought. Going back, I was like, did Jace get away with an egregious push? No, the Colorado guy basically pushed himself off of Jace Brown. It's terrible defense.
I will also say, there's
a great move by Jace Brown, but
there is a point to this where he makes this list again higher because there isn't a lot of great options behind him.
No, that's true.
And then I think that there's something to the fact that that Jace Brown play was a 3rd and 9. K-State doesn't necessarily have to throw that with their backup quarterback. If they didn't trust him, they could have just ran the ball.
Yep.
But they trusted him enough to throw it. The one killer of that entire drive, the fact that they didn't let him finish the job when they were at the 1-yard line is just a killer to me.
Yeah. Well, think of how important that touchdown pass ended up being that Avery Johnson got on that drive, since he just tossed the ball in front of him to Jace Brown. It ended up being what broke the record. It was the difference maker there on the single season touchdown record at K-State. But yeah.
That is true. But yeah, that's more of what we saw in a small little package was better for me than what we saw big picture for a lot of other guys. Is that because the small sample size was literally like one real series against Colorado, and you didn't have to see like take on Roberson take on like West Virginia or
Yeah.
KU last year, maybe because
I think that's just
they're
where the difference for me is that why I kept Gregory just a spot ahead of him, because again I'm not going to push Grant Gregory up much higher. The reason I had him a spot higher was solely just because like Roberson gets a lot of credit. Like I will always have fond memories because he helped K-State win that game in Boulder. But in the grand scheme of things, as fun as that game was, like him keeping that drive alive means a whole lot less than what Grant Gregory did for the totality of games against Iowa State and Kansas. And
no
we just
I
saw
don't.
it over more an extended period. Like I think Roberson and Gregory are probably pretty similar producers if they
Yeah,
both play a full season.
no, that's very valid. There are some tough guys on this list to rank. I've talked about this before. Roberson is probably in that like top 3 or 4 of like toughest guys to rank because it's with his sample size. It was more of like a who would you rather have
Yeah.
at quarterback, and
No,
that's why
and that's what it comes down to sometimes. So
and that's why he ended up being a little bit higher for me than you.
yeah, fair, totally fair. All right, not much more to say about Taquan Roberson and his 3 completions, but he
He
does
does
own
own
Deion
Deion
Sanders.
Sanders.
Yeah, so there you go. Let's move on. Number 12 on the list. If I had a my guy category like John Kurtz, this would be him. Is it because I truly believed in him? It's probably because I doubted Skylar Thompson pretty hard when he was a young guy, and also because I saw the Buehler Crusaders beat Alex Delton in 2014. But Alex Delton's number 12 on the list. The Hayes hurler only threw the ball 171 times in his K-State career. So if you're keeping score at home, Alex Delton threw less passes at K-State in multiple years than Grant Gregory threw in one season. He did, however, throw more than double the amount of passes that the next guy on the list threw. 96 of 171 passing, 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, and on 213 carries, 868 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Cactus Bowl MVP in 2017 against UCLA. He could beat Kansas, but not the Buehler Crusaders, which is what we like to hear in the Voth household. Let's talk about Alex Delton, the 12th best K-State quarterback since 2006.
Yeah, another one that his ranking, because I know that people have already kind of been like, why is he so high
This run right
on
here.
the board? But it is truly just kind of like a function of who all is behind him. Like
Mm-hmm.
who would you rather have on this list so far than Alex Dalton? I don't think that there is one. Like I think that that's why he ends up being 12th for both of us. In what we had, because they're just you go back 20 years, there aren't a lot of guys that are, any good to put it bluntly. Like this is a lot more of who is behind him than what Alex Dalton was, I think. He was fine. He kind of suffers from the same syndrome that the next guy on this list has of in the small pass attempts that he had, he did kind of like to throw the ball to the other team.
Oh, okay.
But the fact that he really went off in this UCLA game kind of gave you hope about what he could be, and then the hope was kind of dashed kind of right away. This UCLA game, like all I remember was thinking of this might be Bill's last game, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, which it turns out it probably should have been based off what transpired the following season. But look, number one, Alex Delton, nobody celebrated a touchdown more flamboyantly than him. I've found out looking back at these highlights.
That is very true.
that run into the end zone and him jumping over the goal line, that is, I think about that probably twice a day. If we're being, honest, it's to me, that's iconic. There are some people that don't, but like K-State was in serious trouble in that game against a KU team that had already fired David Beatty. And if that run is not ripped off, we are not talking about K-State running the streak up to 16. It's an important thing. It's a fun thing to have in this rivalry. For this singular run is important to me and where I ranked Alex Delton. And then also the fact that like he had that Cactus Bowl too, where he was tough to stop for UCLA for whatever reason. And we know that this was not a good time for K-State quarterbacks. And I would tell people, well, yes, I think it's clear that Skylar Thompson, because he ended up in the NFL and, started an NFL playoff game, was the more talented quarterback. He looked like crap for a lot of these 2 seasons here that he had to play for Bill Snyder. And I think at this stage, if you're going to try and give Skylar Thompson a pass for it, I think you have to also grade Alex Delton a little bit nicer and just think that, okay, we know Skylar had a different level that he could have gotten to. His peak, no doubt, was going to be better than Alex Delton's looking back on it. But
Yeah.
Alex Delton also probably could have benefited from having just a neater situation for him, Skylar Thompson, and all the quarterbacks at K-State. But, he showed he could do it in a handful of games. And really, it was KU and UCLA that he had in there. But
this is also the
he
first
did it.
time that I've like seen some of this like UCLA tape in a long time. The fact that it was 17-7
He
UCLA
also,
after K-State had scored like on one of their first plays and then ends up being like 35-17 later on in the highlights is so funny.
I also should have put more of it in here, but he played really well in the game against Baker Mayfield and OU in 2017.
Yeah, he did.
About took down Oklahoma. I think what most people will probably remember from that game would be Denzel Goolsby's interception that still is kind of mind bending to think about. But he played well enough in that game, and unfortunately for K-State, they came up just short, getting outscored 22-14 in that quarter. But Delton ran for 3 touchdowns in that game. He's pretty good throwing the football. He
had his moments where he was really, really good.
Yeah. And, he threw 1 interception in the game. Not great. But it ultimately didn't cost K-State. It also came in the first half. That's where we'll talk about some of these guys on here. It's also just about when your big blunders happened in your moments where you had the opportunity. But Alex Delton, number 12 on the list. Again, talent-wise, I think there are guys that are probably below him that might be more talented, but his accomplishments up there in kind of the same vein as Grant Gregory, as you talked about. I think his peak, his best, was better than Grant Gregory's at K-State. And that's not and people will bring it up. I think like a lot of that can maybe be chalked up to, you mentioned it already, but Grant Gregory was like beat up. He was battered by the time that he was trying to help K-State win games. Like that's not totally his fault. But he did the best he could, but Delton just a smidge higher.
Delton's best is probably better than everybody else that we've had so far.
Yeah. Yeah. At least of, what we've seen in actual gameplay, because to this point, like we can go back and look at the quarterbacks beforehand, but none of the guys 25 through 21 got legitimate playing time at quarterback. None of the guys 20 through 16 outside of Joe Huebner got legitimate playing time at quarterback. And I think people would say they'd rather have Alex Delton than Joe Huebner. And now you go through it today and look at what we've had. Kody Cook is there, Grant Gregory, Taquan Roberson, Alex Delton, as you cut through it. Maybe some would say Kody Cook. Isn't Kody Cook basically just what Alex Delton was, though? Because people think a lot higher of Kody Cook because of that Oklahoma State game.
And because he was a receiver playing quarterback.
Yeah, you also go and look at it like that West Virginia game, he didn't do a ton. He was 4 of 12 in the game. He made one throw that Deontay Burton took like 70 yards or something. Like it's memories will be changed because of the circumstance, but Alex Delton, I will defend the Hayes hurler for a long time in a spot on this list. All right, the moment everybody's been waiting for. Number 11 on this list. This is a big spot because if you're number 11, it means you got snubbed and you just barely missed out on the top 10. Who could it be? Who could be number 11 on this list? Are we even going to remember who this guy was? How important is he? Is he still talked about today? There might be some guys in the top 10 that you haven't thought of in a long time. They were okay. This guy still talked about on a daily basis, and as shown by the posters over at KSO, he still is the greatest quarterback to ever play at K-State. He just didn't get the right situation. It is Daniel Sams, number 11 on the K-State quarterbacks list of the last 20 seasons. Look, 44 of 61, 507 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks in his career, but 184 rushing attempts and 1,042 yards, 14 touchdowns on the ground for Daniel Sams. Unfortunately, his first 2 seasons at K-State, there was a guy named Colin Klein that was the starting quarterback. And then in 2013, he was splitting time with Jake Waters, and he had his moments. And he, despite what some might say, had his opportunity to claim the throne. It's not like Jake Waters was lighting the world on fire. Definitely Iowa State Jake Waters for most of 2013, not K-State Jake Waters. But here we go. Let's talk Daniel Sams.
Yeah, the cultiest hero of the cult heroes, Daniel Sams, because there's still a lot of real defenders of Daniel Sams. And to that, I say he was fine. The reason he doesn't make the top 10, though, is in 61 attempts, he threw 4 interceptions. You really dive in, a lot of his rushing stats came in times where the game was already out of hand. So he was okay. Like, there are times where I think that a lot of what he did kind of gets misconstrued a little bit because of what he did at times when he was in. Because there were just there was highlights that were good. There were bad highlights, like the Baylor game that he's probably, in the Oklahoma State games that he's probably most remembered for. It was kind of a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, so here's what I would show and say with this. Think about, Drew, the conversation we had about Samuel Lemur, and that Samuel Lemur higher in our eyes because we played with him on the NCAA video games. That's where Daniel Sams' value probably came from a lot of places. Because I can guarantee you right now, Jake Waters was not my quarterback that I was using in the NCAA video games. In what would have been NCAA 14, the last one, it would have been Daniel Sams. I would have been riding him to the very end. But I think this is just one of those deals where there was obviously a lot of talent and potential there for Daniel Sams. And he's 11 on this list with the minimal time that he actually logged in serious competition because of the respect that we're giving to him and that we thought of him. I think it's clear that if circumstances were different, Daniel Sams probably has things work out a little bit better. He could have been a better quarterback. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why Jake Waters ultimately won the job. And as you've pointed out, Drew, like McNeese State is where Daniel Sams ended up, and he got to McNeese, and it's not like he did a whole lot once he got there. And certainly there were certain circumstances in his life that were unfortunate, but I think for Daniel Sams, like, you would have wanted maybe a little bit more to kind of shine through for him. But he was good in flashes. He might be the most fun player that we have had on this list. And certainly a lot of people will look back and remember him fondly. Now, that the stat that I threw at the bottom there, that is actually true. That is, well, for the most part, I fact-checked that 99%. At least in every game where he had a rush attempt or a pass attempt, K-State won every game that Daniel Sams had played in until Jake Waters arrived. So Decide whose fault that is for how things ended up working out. But Daniel Sams, number 11 on the list. You can see there now quarterbacks 15 through 11. Kody Cook, Grant Gregory, Taquan Roberson, Alex Delton, and Daniel Sams. Drew, there it is, 15 through 11. We compile the list, obviously. Anything that the haters have made you think you want to do over on, that you would want to shift around with your rankings?
Honestly, no. Like, Taquan Roberson might be a little bit too high, but like I said when we were talking about him, that's not like there's anybody below him that I'm like, oh, they're so much better than he is.
Yeah.
And even with Daniel Sams, like looking at the top 10 that we have coming up, there's nobody that I'm like, oh, he is better than this guy. So it's tough. The thing that weirdly I think that I remember the most about Daniel Sams, like just as we're like thinking, was actually when he came in garbage time against Miami, and I was like, holy crap, who is this guy? Like that 2012 Miami game when he came in, electric. Then like this is more like big picture, like what if kind of stuff here. What do you think that Tyler Lockett's career is like if Daniel Sams is the quarterback?
Probably doesn't break Dad's record. I would venture to guess, right? That seems like a safe bet that he doesn't reach the passing yards number.
It seems like a safe bet to me. Like
and I don't want to throw Mr. Wildcat NIL himself into the mix here and try to, erase his career. But what happens to Curry Sexton in the lore of K-State football history if Daniel Sams is the quarterback and not Jake Waters?
These are two very good points. Like the career trajectory of a lot of different guys, I think, changes if Sams is the quarterback.
Might change for Bill Snyder too, right? Because I mean,
the whole Daniel Sams saga was just a wild time because I remember kind of thinking that Jake Waters was way like miles better than Daniel Sams.
I never once thought that in 2013, but I was a sophomore in high school, so I was pretty stupid. But I definitely was always a Sams guy. So when I showed up to work that first day it came in and John Kurtz is in there, it's just like two guys that align the same on that. No one was going to stop us talking about Daniel Sams.
By the way, we know that John Kurtz is the Daniel Sams guy. You asked him about Sammy Lemire. Did you figure out if he was a Sammy Lemire guy?
Yes. Follow up on John last week and what I asked him about Samuel Lemire. Let me go through here. He said, well, so he sent me the thing. I definitely wanted Snyder to play him at one point in 2010 when he was playing Carson Kaufman to start the year. He was super athletic. That was a pretty popular go Emaw guy that everyone wanted to see get a shot until Klein broke through. And then I told him why we were doing it. And he said, he was a guy I liked, not loved. I knew he ultimately wasn't great, but it seemed a lot more fun. Not quite at my guy level, unfortunately. So,
well,
there you go.
He's just a hater.
But that was probably the gateway drug to my guys for John.
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, this is kind of exciting to like the athletic quarterback that isn't getting a shot over the guy that is probably the better option to play. Maybe I should push this out there. That's probably what got John rearing to go for talk radio, was debating with made up people in his head that Samuel Lemire and Daniel Sams were better than the actual guys that got to start the games. But this is a fun list that we have.
This is of all of the shows, I think probably the most fun because of like the cult hero status that a lot of these guys had.
Yeah, all five of these guys have moments that you can pinpoint and think, man, that was awesome. And honestly, here's the thing that might be the biggest like ding on Daniel Sams is that he was just fun in general. But the other four guys on this list all have moments. Like Kody Cook, it's going to be, the Oklahoma State game, it was a loss. But he also was the guy that had to play quarterback against West Virginia, had that throw there, got into a bowl eligibility, and got to start the game. Grant Gregory, as we talked about, he's got wins against Iowa State and Kansas in tight fashion under his belt. Taquan Roberson is one of the main reasons K-State was able to hang on and win that game in Boulder. Alex Delton, yeah, the Cactus Bowl was great, but even more so, that ugly, nasty KU game, he had the game-winning run, 21 yards in the end zone. And then, yeah, there's Daniel Sams. And I mentioned it earlier. We've seen it in the highlights, and I'll play him again because I know everybody loves Daniel Sams. This is the other thing for the Sams supporters out there. If in 2025, you're saying that Daniel Sams should be higher on this list, he played pretty well in this game against Oklahoma State. The last two possessions of the game, though, where K-State, had a chance to win, Daniel Sams threw interceptions. He threw 3 picks in this game for K-State. And
by the way, that is also a touchdown pass he just threw. That's a horrible throw.
Yeah, it was a bad pass. I was going to say it earlier, but I decided to bite my tongue. I don't want to hurt the feelings of the Sams boys too much, but
that's a great catch by Lockett.
Yeah, what's Daniel Sams' career like if Tyler Lockett's not there? Those passing numbers are even worse. The opportunity was there because Bill Snyder said after the game, like, hey, this is the reason why we started him and all this other stuff, and then ended it by going, certainly didn't like the interceptions. And as you pointed out, Drew, he threw 61 passes in his career, and 4 of them were interceptions. And that also isn't taking into consideration the fact that a lot of the time he came in garbage time when they weren't really asking him to throw the ball. But 6.5% of the time that Daniel Sams threw the ball, it ended up as an interception, which not great for D Sams here.
Yeah,
because
if he was even like a slightly better passer in those 61 attempts, like he doesn't have the 4 interceptions and it's like 1 or 2, there's a chance he makes the top 10.
I think if he's a slightly better passer, he is the quarterback in 2013 more times than not over Jake Water. Like we're having probably a different conversation on that. Before we get out of here, any final highlights you want to look back on just for the fun of them to remember anybody?
No, I think that we're good because I would have wanted to watch the Sam's highlights again.
Oh, I showed them to you enough.
This is why, like, people are gonna think that like I'm not a Daniel Sams guy because I just said that I thought that Jake Waters was a lot better than he was. But it's not like I didn't like Daniel Sams. Like Daniel Sams was an electric factory, and why, as a kid, like I would stay locked into the games in 2012 when they were out of hand because K-State was up a lot because I was like, oh, it's Daniel Sams time.
Yeah. I'm showing you the 2 that I wanted to look back at again.
This Grant Gregory throw is one of the best throws on any of the highlights that we've seen so far.
Yeah, that is totally fair. Man, Brandon Banks. What a guy. What a guy. CFL MVP.
Another kind of cult hero-ish kind of guy.
There are just a lot of guys that I look back on and I really like from that era of teams at K-State. And it's just unfortunate. Like it was the slow start to getting really good. That's necessary and stuff like this. But
I also appreciate that you went CFL MVP because I was just going to say Washington
Redskin.
Redskin.
Yeah.
Legend. Because I remember he had at least 1 kick return touchdown in the NFL. I was like, yeah, that's fun. Lamarck Brown is another guy. I thought that he was going to be so good because of the NCAA football video games, and he really kind of wasn't.
I like his name though. I just something about the name Lamarck. The number 7 as a receiver. Like I like the aesthetic of Lamarck Brown.
No, he has a great aesthetic. Another you hear
I
want
to show this real quick. Watch this, Drew. Watch the celebration in the crowd. This is first half, and they've taken just a field goal lead on KU. This is what the crowd looked like. We have guys crowd surfing after a Grant Gregory to Lamarck Brown bomb. There's 30 minutes of football left to play, and a scoreboard sign. A scoreboard sign. You've lost 3 straight, and somebody brought a scoreboard sign.
That's what happens when you lose 3 straight. You gotta crowd surf after that. But you hear about like defensive guys, especially being like, oh, he's kind of like between this position and this position. Lamarck Brown is the only guy I've ever heard of that like he was a tweener between running back and receiver. They couldn't figure out which one he should be.
He was the original Debo Samuel.
He also like the fact that he was huge because he's like 6'4" and
He's a
played
big
some
dude.
running back was absurd.
I had one of the, I think it was like NCAA 09 or 10 or whatever. Recently, well, not recently. It was when I was in college. I somehow came into another copy of it and played it a little bit. It's kind of fun to go back and play with those era of teams that weren't anything special, but they were. It's fun to look back on. But anyways, there you go. That is our list today, 15 through 11. We will have more in the near future. Spoiler alert. Got to do 2 of them this coming week because I was terrible at my math. I don't know. I think when I concocted the idea, there was still a Friday left to start the month, and then we went past it. And so then we started the next week. So there's not 5 Fridays. We needed 5 Fridays. We don't have 5 Fridays. We've only got
The
1. So you're going to get
10
10 through 6 sometime very soon.
Is it weird to say that I'm more looking forward to 10 through 6 than 5 through 1?
Yeah, 5 through 1 is going to be pretty boring, honestly.
10 through 6, there are some names on here that are electric.
The thing with 5 through 1 is that it's going to be a lot more just like generic
This guy was really
talk
good.
and like, oh, this was good. Oh, look at this. 10 through 6, there's still going to be some like cult hero to it, you know?
The guy
And complicated legacies with those guys. Like the top 5, not complicated. Well, I lied. But still complicated for a couple of those guys, but not as complicated as the others.
The guy that is number 8 on our list is, I think, the guy that I've been looking forward to talking about the most.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny. The guy number 8 on our list, Drew and I both had him higher than 8, but because of the way that the averages worked out, he ends up at 8 on the list.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
I think he's the only guy that both of us ranked higher that finished lower on the list because we were so different on some of the other guys in the top 10. So it's going to be fun the next week as we continue on with it. Whenever we get the show to you, that's up in the air. But Monday, Memorial Day, we are going to have the 10 through 6 story drop. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll have another fun week over at KSO. So head on over there, get signed up today. If you're not, just $1 for your first week and get all the recruiting action that you need from KSO and plenty of other stuff. And like I said, you can join the squirrely group of message board posters that are fighting about Daniel Sams, Alex Delton, and Grant Gregory over on KSO right now. Come at us. That's Drew Galloway. I'm Mason Voth. We're out of here. Thanks for watching and listening.